had such a long career. What's responsible for that?
I think my family, my parents, I had incredible parents. I just quickly want to share with you that I just lost my mother last week. She was 104 and 8 months old. And so instead of really being in a period of grieving, I'm in a period of just gratefulness that I had my mother for so long. Very few women my age still have a mother. And it went very peacefully, and that's kind of what we hope for all of us. But no, my family was extremely supportive. My brother, Gerald Perreau, Richard Miles, was in the Red Pony. He was the little original boy in the Red Pony with Myrna Loy and Bob Mitchum. I'm terrible with names, so when I remember them, you'll see a smile on my face because I'll say, I remember that. And my sister Janine did a few films and a few Perry Masons. And they were just always supportive. When I wasn't actually doing a film, I went to regular school. I went to Catholic school, Beverly Hills, and then I had a tutor on the set. So I really, it was almost like I was a kid with a job, but then I went back to school and did what I had to do. So I attribute it to being very grateful for the career that I had as a child, and I accepted that, and I loved it. And then when I got married and had my first child, my daughter Gina, priorities take over. You know, we do move on, and we do have different chapters in our lives, and so I wasn't really saying, oh gosh, I would love to be doing this again. I was doing something else. And since that time, I've done theater, and I taught at Immaculate Heart High School in Hollywood, which is where I went to high school, and where you saw the little clip at the end with Meghan Markle. She was one of my students, and I taught there for 23 years, and I just felt it was kind of an obligation after being in the spotlight for many years and learning from, I mean, you saw the great actors I worked with, Frederick March and I mean, Charles Boyer,
yes.
and you know, amazing actors and amazing directors. And I thought, you know, I have really learned such a great deal about acting and film and so on, that it was a wonderful opportunity to give back. And I think that's what we're here for. You know, if you can mentor some of your talents with young people, that's sort of what it's all about. You know, it's just it turned out to be not just about me, but about life and about my family.
When you began your career, you were under contract at age 5,
Yes.
which I loved, and I would assume you were a good contract employee. You didn't refuse the assignments like Betty Davis did.
Yes.
But that was the golden age of Hollywood.
Yes.
Does it still look golden to you in retrospect? Was there a different feeling when you were coming up in that system as opposed to when you were acting in the 60s and 70s?
It was a completely different time. I mean, it really was. You know, starting as young as I did in 1943, 44 was my first film with Madame Curie, that you saw a little snippet of that. A silly little baby in her arms, my goodness. No, the business then, although the big stars certainly were making a lot of money, but if you were under contract, I mean, $200 a week, whatever. Now you hear about the stars of Friends making $1 million an episode, you know, for a half-hour episode. It wasn't like that. It wasn't the big money-making institution that it certainly is now. And it was really, we did what we wanted to do, and we enjoyed it. I was never pushed by my parents. If a film came up, and for instance, it was time at a Catholic school for my confirmation, I found out that if I did that film, I couldn't receive my confirmation. So I had to make a choice, and I thought, and my father and mother said, you know, you always in life have to make the moral choice that's the best for you. So I said, my confirmation. I wanted to receive it with my classmates, sort of, you know, it's almost like a bas mitzvah, but it's the Catholic version of that. But no, I always had a say in what I did, and I always loved it, and yet it was kind of separate. You know, I had my family, and I had to wash dishes at home and make my bed in the morning. You know, I mean, we had rules, and I don't think it's probably that way anymore. But it was great then. It was great then, and I am so glad. I mean, I'm watching these films, some of which I don't remember seeing at all, and I'm just very grateful for that experience. You know, kind of.
Was there competition for roles? Were you up against Margaret O'Brien? For
Margaret's a
certain
very dear friend, by the way. Margaret's a few years older than me. So we didn't compete because as a kid, you know, you're really
Right.
the age that you are. Margaret and I are still very, very close friends from that time. We kind of kept in touch with our parents. But the competition, yes, and it was very funny because some of the young actors would say, "Oh, when you were up for a film, we knew we didn't have a chance," and I'd say, "Oh, that's so silly." But I never had to audition, and I had an agent, so I didn't have to my parents didn't have to push me. Had an agent who would make the deal, but I never had to audition. And then when I grew up and things in the industry got very tough, I'm trying to remember early '70s, I think, and there were just all kinds of things, and they thought, well, let's try to do something like the WPA in New York and in the country during the war, and so they started something called TAPLA, the Theater Arts Project of LA. And I was newly married and had one child, and my husband was out of work, and I thought, well, I've got to work, and I wanted to work, but I had to audition for a job. I think there were 60 jobs available, and there were 2,850 actors in Hollywood who were out of work that auditioned, and I got one of those 60 positions. But I had to audition, and I was a nervous wreck because I never really had to do that. So it was challenging, and it was fun, and we did do theater for parks and recreation, for schools, introducing young people to theater. But I think we were making $175 a week, and that was in the early '70s. So to me, I mean, I would love to work now more and benefit by some of those things, but then we really worked because we loved it. And I think you can see, and in watching this, I could see how I looked at Charles Coburn when we were doing the Charleston and so on. And there were so many other films. I mean, working with, for instance, Bonzo Goes to College was one film that I did at Universal, working with a monkey. And between you and me, Bonzo was a girl.
Now we know.
Yes. This stays in this room. And the reason is, and I don't mean to offend any gentleman here, but the male monkeys or chimpanzees, their rear ends were not attractive. And so in order to make it a little more palatable, they had Peggy was the monkey. And as a matter of fact, I still have a scar because I think I was about 8 or 9 years old, and I of course fell in love, little kid with a chimpanzee who was trained, and I loved, and we played together. And after lunch, they said, "Gigi, take a nap for 20 minutes." And Peggy, the monkey, wanted to come in. And so we were kind of playing around, not really napping. And she accidentally bit me, and right through my hand. And we were in the middle of a scene when we had broken for lunch. So they said, "Oh," and I had to go. The studios then had their own little hospital kind of right there in case anything happened. And the monkey bit me. And so I had to go get stitches and a tetanus shot, and I got back to the set afterwards, and the assistant director said, "Well, do you want us to wrap for the day?" And I said, "Huh?" No, I said, "We were just in the middle of a scene." I mean, it didn't even occur to me that because I'd been bitten by the monkey, and the trainer of the monkey was so embarrassed. And even the monkey, you could tell, it wasn't, I mean, it didn't mean to bite me. You know, it was just one of those animal things. But No, that was
I think Bonzo worked with Ronald Reagan.
yes,
also
with
in
Ronald
the film.
Reagan. He did the original Bedtime for Bonzo.
That's right. Yep.
And I knew President Reagan, and as you will see in the film tonight, the First Lady, Nancy Davis, who became Nancy Reagan, she was a psychiatrist in the movie. So I knew Nancy from the film, and she was a delight to work with. She really was a delight. And for some reason, what I remember is going to lunch in the commissary with her, and my mother on one side and Nancy on the other side, and me in the middle, and my mom and Nancy holding my hand like this, and we kind of skipped down from the same stage to the commissary, singing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game." I never was into it. We'd say, "Take me out to the ball game," and we do. And so at the end of the film, when I ask her for an autograph picture, because I have only about 12 of my very favorites that I worked with that I ask at the end for an autograph picture, and she wrote, "To my dear little Gigi, who can take me out to the ball game anytime. Love, Nancy Davis." And so I have very fond memories of her, and then I did catch up with them, and Ronald Reagan's oldest daughter with Jane Wyman, Maureen Reagan, was a very close friend of mine. And unfortunately, I've lost many of those people. Maureen we lost to melanoma. No, it's I am just sitting here as a grateful older lady with a beautiful family, 4 kids, 6 grandkids, foster child that I'm helping, helped raise my granddaughter, one of my granddaughters. And so I'm just very, very grateful. I'm kind of unique, as you said, in having been a child actor and survived.
And survived,
as an
and
adult.
again, to see you in a film like The Man in the Gray Flannel Suit, you're holding your own with Frederick March up there on the screen, and that is the older version of you.
Yes.
We literally saw you grow up from film to film.
I got to see me grow up with this. Whoever did this
Did
video
a very good job.
did a beautiful job.
You know, I tried
Yes.
to make a list of the actresses who played your mother.
Ah,
Ann Sothern, Betty Davis, Claudette Colbert, Irene Dunne, Barbara Stanwyck, Katharine Hepburn, Lana Turner. Were
Yeah.
any of them actually motherly?
According to my mother, Betty Davis was not crazy about working with kids. Well, there was there still is probably a saying in Hollywood that you just didn't want to work with child actors and animals. Those were the 2 things that actors wanted to avoid. Let's see, who might have been motherly? There were some you didn't mention. Linda Darnell, for instance, was I think a stepmother, and she was just lovely to work with. And as a matter of fact, when we had the groundbreaking of the Hollywood Walk of Fame, Hollywood Walk of Stars, whatever they call it, Linda Darnell was there, and I was there, and Charles Coburn and Francis X. Bushman. Now, only those of you who are rich, because nobody here is that old. Nobody here is older than me. And to have those people, and my daughter was reminding me, she said, "Mom," she said, "you have to talk about that a little bit, because you're the only one still alive who was there for the groundbreaking of the Hollywood Walk of Fame." So here I am.
Have you been back to see your star?
Oh, yes. And it's very funny because fans and children and one day, one of my French cousins, my father was French, and so French cousins would come and stay with us, and they said, "Oh, Gigi, we would like to see your star." So we'd drive down and park there, and then they'd always want to take a picture, and I'd have to get down and lie down next to the star, and they'd take a picture. And a tour bus, very small, little, cute, personal tour bus, came by and parked while my cousins were there, and the driver came out, and he said, "Well, what's going on here?" And my cousin said, "Well, my cousin, Gigi Perreau, this is her star." And the driver kind of looked at me and he said, "Do you have any identification?" I was a little insulted, but you know what? My daughter said I took out my driver's license. I can't believe it. Anyway, no, no, that was lovely, and I would like to at some point, talk about that day in groundbreaking for the Hollywood Walk of Fame, because it seems to be now such a big thing, and I guess the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce voted the 50 celebrities that they wanted to honor at first, and so those were the ones, and they asked me to be on the committee to dig the ground and so on. So we had gold-plated shovels, which somehow got used by the gardener to dig in the backyard one day, and I don't think I ever saw that again. But anyway, no, it was a very exciting time. It really was. And this, believe it or not, is one of my favorite films, I think, because I didn't even know, when you're a kid, film noir, I didn't know what the heck a film noir was. And at the Egyptian Theater, about 10 years ago, they had a festival of film noir, and I got a call saying, would I come, and they were going to show one of my films, and would I do a Q&A? And I said, but this is a film noir. I said, I don't think I did a film noir film. And they went, Shadow on the Wall is a film noir film. And I went, oh, okay.
It is officially a film noir
It is
film.
officially a film noir film. And so I did ask, because I didn't want to pretend I knew what it was, because I didn't. And they said, no, it was because of Ann Southern. I'm not going to give it away, but it's because of what happens at the end. So
Right.
I'm not going to
And
give
to
it
include
away.
everybody in this, the film noirs really came right after World War II with the return of the GIs to America. And the world was supposed to be great. We had defeated the Nazis and the Japanese, and it wasn't great. There was a lot of municipal corruption. There were scandals. And these films, really starting with Billy Wilder's Double Indemnity in 1945, launched this movement that went all the way up to Orson Welles' Touch of Evil in the late 1950s. That's the classic film noir period, and Shadow on the Wall illustrates it. And in fact, I don't know if you remember this, there was another movie with a similar plot called The Window, with a young actor named Bobby Driscoll.
My brother was supposed to do that role, but he got the measles.
Well, there you are.
And
So
couldn't do
Bobby Driscoll plays a youngster who witnesses a murder
Yes.
through the window, and no one will believe him because he's 8 years old.
Yes.
So it's interesting, that film was made in 1949. This film was made in 1950, right?
I believe
Shadow
so.
on the Wall.
Yes.
And so it shows you not that they stole the plot, but when the plot is in the air in this post-war period when children were considered vulnerable and children were seeing things out of windows that they never would have seen in the 1930s in Hollywood. So noir is an indication of kind of where the country was going, as reflected in the movies made by the studios.
Oh, thank you for sharing. This man knows all of those things. I feel so honored
Wow.
to be sitting here with you, and
No,
your history is amazing.
It's the opposite, I think, because you just witnessed so many eras in filmmaking. You were there literally for the transition to television.
Yes.
And then to a different kind of TV in the 70s and the 80s. So as you look back, what do you think are the most valuable lessons you learned as a performer, as an actress?
As a performer, not as I think I learned to listen, to truly listen to other actors when they were working. I remember working with Frederick March in that. I only had that one very nice long scene, and I think there
But
was
it's a good scene.
it was a wonderful scene. And I remember working with Frederick March, who was an Academy Award winner and just a wonderful human being. And we did the master shot, and then we did his close-up, and then we did my close-up. And he sat right next to the camera and exactly gave me the same performance that he had done in the master shot. And I could see him listening to what I was saying and then his reaction. And so I think that's one of the most valuable things that as I taught theater and taught acting is listening, because how can you respond if you're elsewhere mentally, or if you don't know your line, so you're wondering, well, he finishes that sentence and I say, you're not listening. You can't be real. It can't be them seeing this person and their soul and what they have to offer. So I think that was the one thing, and I'm sure my kids will say, oh, Mom, you never listen to us. Sure, they wouldn't agree at all. But I think, and especially I tried to express that to my students when I was teaching for 23 years. And I'm still on Facebook with hundreds of my former students, and I love them all. I mean, it's an amazing thing and you have done it now, and I know you know that.
But I wish we all could have been in some of your acting classes.
Oh, well, it
so
was fun.
entertaining.
I had several parents who said, can we just sit in? And I went, no, this is high school. They've got to get their own role. But no, this is amazing, and I am grateful to something like River Run. It's nice to be my age and not really having done much work in the past, God knows how many years. I've done a couple of voiceovers for my daughter, who is a film producer and director, and as a matter of fact, I don't know if any of you are going to see her film. It's an animated feature called Fly Me to the Moon.
Yes.
And that's Gina's film, my daughter who's here. And I think she gave me one line in it. I think I got one line. And then she and her husband wrote and created another film that was wonderful about a turtle that went around the world. And I got another line in that film as the whale.
See,
So-
you're still working.
See? So I have to say I've worked X number of years and I'm still working and I'm available if anybody would want me. But I'm just very grateful for what the industry has given me, and to be recognized tonight is very gratifying. It's something I would never have expected it, but when they called and said would I come and do the festival, and it's just keeping film and the whole milieu of teaching from the screen and stage. So yes, I'm a very lucky woman.
Well, we were very lucky to have you here this year.
So, Gigi, we have an award for you. This is our Master of Cinema Award. These awards are handcrafted to represent an inner tube that one might use to float down the river where we were founded. So when we honor your career, we are also remembering our roots and our legacy.
Lovely.
And this award is on a piece of reclaimed wood that came from a barn that was being torn down in western North Carolina. So Gigi, on behalf of everyone at the River Run International Film Festival, it gives me great pleasure to present you with our Master of Cinema Award.
Really, really beautiful. I mean, this will have such a place of honor in my home, and I'm so grateful to all of you for coming and supporting River Run. Hope you continue to do it for as long as you can.